Speaking with Great Southern Copper's Sam Garrett this morning for an extended Q&A. Sam, good morning.
Good morning, Andrew. Nice to talk to you, and good morning to all our shareholders and interested people online today.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Sam. Look, firstly, we've had a fair few questions come through. Before we get into the Q&A, give us a bit of a short summary of the main achievements over the last 12 months.
Yeah, 2025 was a very busy year for Great Southern Copper and really a breakout year for the company. It included, we started the year with three large projects. Besides the Especularita Project, we had our San Lorenzo project and our Monty project. The results that we were getting from the Especularita sort of necessitated that we focus our capital deployment there. So we offloaded both the San Lorenzo and Monty projects to focus on Especularita. That's proved to be a very good decision for the company. Doesn't necessarily mean we won't get more in the future, but for now, it allows us to focus our efforts. In terms of our work programs and our success during the year, 2025 was very important. We had two discoveries at the drill face, both Mustasa and Bayuda. And that was on the back of, about 5,500 meters of drilling over the year at Cerro Negro, and also included about 1,000 meters of RC towards the end there. And at Bayuda, we drilled about 553 meters of diamond drilling and about 1,020 meters of RC. So all up, that resulted in about 3,000 meters of samples and 586 sort of RC samples as well. So that was the drilling on the broader project itself. We took about 500 rock chip samples across the Especularita project and 114 odd soil samples and ASD samples. So, a very busy year. We got a lot of work done. We did it very efficiently. And it's given the company an excellent launching pad for 2026.
Well, look, there might be a bit of repetition here with your last answer, but if you had to describe Great Southern Copper in a sentence or two, what have you proven at Especularita now that you hadn't 12 months ago?
We knew that Especularita was a fantastic project and underexplored and, in a fantastic location. We knew that. What we didn't know 12 months ago was that it hosted a high-grade copper-silver deposit at Mustasa, Cerro Negro. What we didn't know 12 months ago was that it hosted a Maricunga-style porphyry gold deposit, which we've since discovered at Bayuda. And what we didn't know was that it hosted a intrusive-related copper-gold project at Breccia Amarilla. So three very key features that we didn't know 12 months ago, and they're going to give us a fantastic platform to explore into over the next 12 months out to whenever we hopefully start mining.
Well, phase 3 drilling has highlighted stacked high-grade sulfide lenses at Mustasa. How important is that stacked lens architecture in terms of its potential scale?
This is a very important feature for the deposit because whilst we don't have 100% understanding of the architecture of the deposit, features like this allow us to investigate the opportunity that the total tonnage of the deposit has the opportunity to increase within a smaller volume of rock. So that's a key opportunity that we're very willing and eager to explore over the next drill phase or two.
You've now drilled over a 2-kilometre strike length along the Mostaza Fault Zone. Are we starting to see evidence of a broader mineralised system here rather than a single isolated deposit?
Indeed, we are, and that's a very good question by some of our followers. Mostasa, underneath the mine, phase 1 and 2 have demonstrated, excellent grades. So the next step was to start drilling outwards, and we don't have all the results back from that yet. However, we do know that in hole 7, for example, several hundred meters south of the mine, that intersected excellent high-grade copper and silver. We know that, and we released recently that hole 34 at lens 5, which is also a few hundred meters south, intersected strong high-grade copper silver mineralization over broad intervals as well. And we released earlier in the year visual results of sulfide intersected in the RC chips about a kilometre south. So the evidence of sulfide, and that's pyrite, indicates that the system is live, at least a kilometre south. So we're still very much in the infancy of exploring that system further south, but we are seeing strong evidence of the potential for the mineralisation to continue.
What do you reckon, Sam, are the biggest geological uncertainties remaining at Cerro Negro, and what needs to happen to resolve them?
Also a good question. One of the key points is understanding the leach zone, near surface leaching of copper and silver to a lesser extent in that sort of lens 2 to 5 area. We've drilled quite a number of holes in that area where we didn't get the copper we expected, despite getting fairly high-grade silver and being inside the lens, but clearly it's all oxidized. So understanding how that fits into the system. We're still not 100% certain on the link between the lens 3 to 4, 5 zone and lens 2 at Mustasa. We still don't have any details of what's beneath the monolith zone, so we're really looking forward to getting into drilling that out and seeing if the mineralization there looks very similar to what we're seeing in holes 33 and 36, which were released recently, and also hole 34, the lens 5. So that's a big area. That's a 400 by 400 by 400 meter area. So that's something we need to get into. And we still don't have 100% understanding of the structural dislocation within the deposit. So still a lot of things to work out, but we're heading in the right direction. Every hole gives us something new to understand and further to explore. The other key feature we don't really understand yet is the relationship of this lead zinc zone to the high-grade copper silver. That's sort of a zone sitting above the high-grade copper silver zone in Mustasa. Now, is that something that can grade into at depth, zone into a high-grade copper zone? That's all still to be found out.
You mentioned earlier, Sam, Valuda has shown characteristics of a Maricunga-style porphyry system. Tell us a bit more strategically, how important could a porphyry discovery be alongside Mustasa?
Oh, this is really exciting for us. And, as if the high-grade copper silver is not exciting enough, this is something really special. And for a number of reasons. The first is the Maricunga-style gold mineralization has not previously been recorded in the coastal belt of Chile. So that's tick one, so we've got to jump on our competitors there. The second thing is it gives us a lot of optionality. These are typically big systems, so we have the option down the track if we can prove it up as a project that we can sell to a major or joint venture out, or bring funds into the company to allow us to continue to explore other areas. So it's also near service and near infrastructure, so we've got plenty of options to play with there. But having a gold project that's potentially large scale is a big bonus for us at the moment.
And just switching focus to Colorado, that's described as a large lithocap porphyry target that hasn't yet been drill tested. How should investors think about that opportunity relative to Cerro Negro and Viuda?
Also, a good question. We're getting lots of them today. The Cerro Negro lithocap is part of the broader Specularita lithocap. So the Specularita lithocap, as we define it, the La Colorado lithocap, is about 75 square kilometers in area. And the Cerro Negro project is important because it allows us to see what's potentially beneath that cap. These lithocaps are important key indicators of porphyry style mineralization, not just in Chile, but elsewhere around the world. But what's really fascinating about the Specularita is that it sits along trend from huge porphyry copper deposits up higher in the Andes. The Altar porphyry, 2 billion tons of copper plus currently in development. It sits along trend to the north from Andacollo, which has got exactly the same type of lithocap features. But our La Colorado lithocap hasn't been drilled. Why? I'm not really sure. But we're going to give it a go this year. So hopefully we'll be able to answer the questions that some of those shareholders have been speculating. So I guess for our shareholders in the company and future shareholders, this is the big blue sky picture. This is the opportunity to potentially have a big porphyry and attract big players to the company.
Sam, a question we see frequently, not just at Great Southern Copper, but across the broader junior resources space, assays. Why do they sometimes take quite a long time to come back? Can you give us a bit of detail as to the process and what drives those timelines?
Yes, it's a perennial question, isn't it? And it differs for the different type of drilling that we do. So RC drilling, we can get those samples out very quickly, almost the next day after drilling, and the results will take however long they take to get back. That's dependent on the lab, and we can't influence that. Diamond drilling, the results, the samples take a lot longer to get out because we have to spend quite a bit of time preparing the core. There's photographing, there's measuring, there's measuring the structures, there's doing the geology, there's cutting the core in half. So all that can take up to a month itself before you even get to the lab. So we've got samples that have been in the lab for 3 months, and that's also a feature of how sort of busy the market's getting. Everybody's drilling up to Christmas. We've basically priority sampled the areas that we think are mineralized or can see are mineralized. There's some danger in that you might miss something, but we've done that. And for the future, now that we understand that Mustasa specifically doesn't have gold associated with it, then we can cut the time down in the lab by not assaying for gold. And that also saves us a lot of money. So there are things we have in place to try and improve the system at the lab end. But unfortunately, once it leaves our bodega, there's not much we can do. We have zero influence, and that's as it should be. You can't have companies influencing the lab.
Sam, another topic investors mention regularly is warrant overhang. How should shareholders think about outstanding warrants and their potential impact on the share price?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, isn't it? And look, I'm not a market expert by any means, but the way I think shareholders should look at them positively. It's an opportunity for the company to raise money and raise money more cheaply. So in the sense that we don't have to pay fees for it. But in the broader context, when these warrants are usually issued at typically at twice the price of the previous raising, and often they're issued, a 1 for 2 type scenario, or a half for a one, or however it's sort of organised. So I think, if we didn't have those warrants and the share price doubled, we would do a raising. So it's kind of working out the same, in my view, my sort of simple view. So I don't think this sort of story of overhang or whatever adds up. And I think companies or shareholders should see it as a positive potential capital raising event in the future, to which keeps the company in funds and able to execute its programs. And that worked very, very well for us last year when funds were tight, and we were able to extend our drilling program. We drilled 4 drilling programs last year, on one small raising. So, it worked very well for us.
Just staying on the subject of future fundraisings, of course, without discussing specifics, how does the board think about capital discipline and avoiding dilution?
Well, avoiding dilution, capital discipline are all very important. And we have an experienced board at Great Southern Copper to manage all those issues and questions. In terms of fundraising, yeah, we can't say too much, but shareholders can see that we've got warrants out there that potentially allow us to get more funds in if the price can get to those levels satisfactorily. And that doesn't necessarily happen. We've seen slippage recently. So, but failing that, we do have very strong support within the company, in our shareholder base. We've never had a problem in the past raising money when we've actually needed it. And based on the success that we've had over the last year, and based on the success of the commodity prices, where we stand today, silver is almost 3 times where it was 12 months ago. In fact, it's 50% more than it was 3 months ago. So, with all those factors in play, I think we'll be in a good position to raise funds for the drilling commitments that we have ahead of us.
Some shareholders have commented on the bid-ask spread being relatively wide on occasion. Can you explain why that happens in smaller exploration companies, and does it reflect fundamentals?
No. I can't answer that, and it certainly doesn't reflect fundamentals, does it? I mean, 12 months ago, we were at about 1.2p, and today we've pushed over 3p towards 4. We're sliding back a bit at the moment, but as we said just previously, metal prices have gone up. We've made a big discovery at Mustasa, and potential big discovery at Bayuda. So we're sitting in a much better place than we were 12 months ago.
And the final one here, Sam. Look, if you were a skeptical investor taking a look from the outside at Great Southern Copper, what would your biggest concern be, and how would you address it?
Ooh. Well, I guess firstly, it's good to be skeptical, and you should always do your research before you get into these junior mining stocks. There's, they are riskier than the established, mining houses as an investment. So it's important that everyone does their research, and that means, reading the releases, and watching these types of videos and all that sort of stuff. Reading our research reports. We've got research reports out there. In terms of the risks ahead for us, I guess there's the traditional risks. The commodity prices go down, or there's the risk that Mustasa doesn't stack up, or what have you. But I think the way we manage all that compared to our peers, I think we're ahead of the game. We we've got two good projects at an advanced level now, and we've got a pipeline of drill projects. So I think we're in a good space compared to our peers in the industry.
Sam, thanks for your time. Good to see you.
Thanks, Andrew. Nice to talk to you.